Hi, I'm Joe, a Warsaw-based shooting instructor. I recently rescued my beloved Mauser from a certain despotic dictatorship and need to take it apart and give it a good cleaning after 5 years of hiding in cellars, attics, and crawl spaces, so I figured this would be a good opportunity to make some videos about the Mauser, sharing some of the things I've learned about working on my Mauser over the years. In today's video, I'm going to take you through the process of disassembling a K98k Mauser as much as possible for a non-gunsmith. Subsequent videos in this series will examine the operation of the Mauser action, as well as some of the problems I've had with this rifle, and some of my methods for maintaining the rifle. I'll also talk briefly about the history of Yugoslavia's M98 refurbishment program, and I'll take a look at some useful Mauser accessories. Now let's get started. To begin the process of field stripping the Mauser, first, clear the rifle. Next, ensure that the safety is set to the middle takedown position, and remember that the safety can only be engaged if the bolt is cocked. So if the bolt is uncocked, simply open the bolt to cock it, then set the safety. This is very important, as if you disassemble the bolt with the safety in the fire position, the bolt will uncock as you work on it, and you will have to cock it before it can be put back into the rifle. Next, to remove the bolt, lift the bolt stop and remove the bolt. Next, to remove the sling, first, loosen it so that you have room to work. Now, to remove the floor plate, you need to use this tool that comes with the RG34 cleaning kit. One end of the tool has a pin for depressing the button that holds the floor plate, and the other end is used for general cleaning and oiling of the gun by wrapping some cleaning ricks around the head. Now, moving to the front of the gun, remove the cleaning rod, press down on the barrel band spring, and you can remove the barrel bands and the handguard. Note that the barrel bands cannot be removed from the barrel if the sight hood is in place. Before you remove the bolt from the gun, always remember to remove the bolt with the safety in the middle takedown position and not the fire position. Otherwise, the bolt will uncock as soon as you start to disassemble it, and you will have to cock it in order to get it back into the gun. I use a large flathead screwdriver to press down on the cocking piece whenever I forget that. To disassemble the bolt, first, press down on the plunger on the side of the bolt head and unscrew the bolt head from the bolt body. Next, to take out the firing pin, insert the firing pin into the hole in the takedown disc on the stock and press down hard. I like to put my thumb on the safety to get a more comfortable hold. Press down And while the spring is compressed, rotate the cocking piece 90 degrees, and then relax the spring. To remove the safety, put the safety on safe and pull it out. And lastly, to get the plunger out, push it in and rotate it. Now, if you take the bolt out with the safety on fire, I'll show you what happens if you try and disassemble the bolt. It uncocks, and you can't do anything with the bolt until you cock the cocking piece and engage the safety. So to do that, I use a flathead screwdriver. I place the screwdriver against my stomach, hold it down, and push on the sear. If you would like to further disassemble the rifle beyond the basic field stripping, I'll now show you how to remove the front sight hood, bayonet lug, rear sight, and butt plate, and how to remove the trigger guard in action from the stock. This level of disassembly is what you might want to perform after initially receiving a rifle that is still covered in cosmoline, for example, and is not part of a routine cleaning regimen. To further disassemble the rifle beyond a normal field stripping, let's start with the front sight hood. To remove the front sight hood, I use a pair of snap ring pliers. Set the pliers to internal and make sure to wrap some tape around the edges of the tips to avoid scratching the sight hood. And with the sight hood out of the way, now you can remove the barrel bands. To remove the bayonet lug, simply drive out the bayonet lug pin. It only moves in one direction, so you push it out from the right side of the rifle and push it in from the left side of the rifle. Most guns seem to have that one piece that requires 3 or 4 hands to put it back together. And on the Mauser, it's the rear sight. I'm not going to remove it today, but I will explain the process and show some photos. First, you need to drive out this little pin in the sight hinge. The sight leaf is held in place by 2 half-circle shaped lugs in the sight ramp pushed up by the sight leaf spring. To get the sight leaf out, you push down about here with a large brass punch. Push down and back, and wrap a rag around the punch to avoid marring anything. Once the sight leaf is free, you can remove the adjuster, you can pull out the spring, and you can take out the base. Reassembly is done through prayer and through reversing this process, but now you'll need 3 or 4 hands to get it back together while compressing the sight leaf spring and God's blessing. Here are some photos to better illustrate how this all fits together. To remove the action from the stock, we need to remove the 2 action screws, but first we need to remove the 2 locking screws. And then the action screws. Then the trigger guard just lifts up and the stock comes off. And here we can see the bolt stop and the ejector. The bolt stop has a piece of spring steel pressed into it. Turning now to the trigger guard and the follower magazine spring and floor plate. If you wish to remove the locking button in the trigger guard, simply drive out this pin and the button will come out. To take apart the spring, the follower, and the floor plate, simply and as you can see, the magazine spring has this cutout so that only one end will fit into the follower. To remove the butt plate, simply unscrew the 2 wood screws. And now that the rifle has received a thorough cleaning after being in hiding for 5 years, let's put it back together. First, the butt plate. Next, the bayonet lug. Remember that the pin is pushed out from the right side and in from the left side. And now the bolt stop and the ejector. And now to put the action back into the stock. I measured the action and locking screws with my dial caliper and both inch and metric thread pitch gauges and got the following results. The Mauser K98k action screws are 1/4 inch diameter and 22 threads per inch, and the locking screws are 140 thousandths of an inch in diameter, equivalent to a number 6 screw, and 42 threads per inch. Those are some pretty weird screw threads. Suffice it to say, do not lose these screws. In the Mauser action, the front of the trigger guard clamps against the bottom of the receiver right in front of the recoil lug. While at the back of the trigger guard, the stock has a metal pillar embedded to provide support for the action and the trigger guard. And that pillar fills this space. Now for the action screws. In the past, I found that the action screws do not line up with the locking screws when I tighten them, so I put some brass shims between the stock and the trigger guard so that the action screws line up right where I want them. As you tighten the action screws, make sure that you push the receiver against the recoil lug. I couldn't find a recommended torque value for these screws, so I just tightened. As well, having them line up with the locking screws may throw off achieving peak torque values. On the plus side, since they go back to the same location each time, at least I will have consistent torque each time I take the rifle apart. The question is whether or not I have sufficient torque. And they line up right where I want them. And the locking screws. And now for the handguard and barrel bands. Make sure that you have the barrel bands installed in the correct orientation before you put the sight hood back on. Otherwise, to change them, you'll have to take the sight hood back off. With the barrel bands installed, now we can do the sight hood. And now for the magazine follower, magazine spring, and floor plate. Remember that the magazine spring has these cutouts so that this end will only fit in the follower. To reassemble the bolt, first, take the plunger and spring, push it in, and rotate it. Next, the safety. And make sure to keep it in the takedown position. Next, the firing pin spring. Put the firing pin in the hole. Press down. Put the cocking piece on. Rotate and relax. Then take your bolt body, screw it back on, and it's ready to go. And now for final assembly. The sling goes on in this orientation, so to install it, feed the end through the barrel band, then the two keepers, the buckle, and then the stock. Flip the rifle over, to install the stopper. Next, cinch the sling up nice and tight. And of course, the cleaning rod. And lastly, the bolt. To decock the bolt, I unlock it, and then I hold the trigger while riding the bolt into battery. And now you know how to field strip and disassemble a Mauser K98k. In my next video, I'll describe how the Mauser action works, so be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Check out my Mauser K98k M98 playlist, and follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/SurviveWithJoe. Thanks for watching.